Hey guys, how's it going? So, the VMU. Even though it's a really awesome memory card for the Sega Dreamcast, there's always been one problem that's always plagued it from the start, and that is, it does not have a lot of memory. Because you see, this thing has 200 blocks total, and there are actually some game save files that can even take up to 80 blocks, and possibly even more, which is certainly a big problem. But fortunately, Sega did try to fix this problem back then with the introduction of another peripheral for the Sega Dreamcast, the 4X memory card. And as the name implies, it has 4 times the memory of a regular VMU, which makes this thing awesome. And that's what I want to talk about in today's video. So, without much further ado, let's talk about the Sega Dreamcast 4X memory card.
The 4X memory card was created in the middle of the Dreamcast lifespan in order to solve the VMU's problem of not enough memory. So here's what the 4X memory card looks like. It has a very simple design, as I will basically go over here. So the front part of this thing basically has a little bit of piece of indented plastic, 4 LED lights, a Dreamcast logo, and if we flip this thing on the top, you will actually see a button. I'll explain what that does later in this video. So here's the interesting question. How does the 4X memory card compare to the regular VMU? Well, the interesting thing is that they're around the same size, which is really cool. Obvious differences, you can obviously see the VMU has a screen, a lot more buttons than the 4X memory card, and of course they're oriented differently from each other. If we flip them onto their back side, we can also see some things that the 4X memory card is missing, which is speakers and basically a battery compartment. But the 4X memory card more than makes it up with its memory. Anyways, so, can these two plug together? Well, I'm going to try that, and the answer is no, because if you look carefully at the 4X memory card, you can see that there's basically a notch on it, pretty much the same as like on the rumble packs and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, because of that notch, you cannot plug these two things together. Alright, with the comparison out of the way, I think it's time that we move on to the box of the 4X memory card. As you can see here, the box of the 4X memory card is pretty much like the similar to the artwork that you saw on later like Dreamcast packaging. So we flip onto the side here and we can see that it contains the 4X memory card, of course, an instruction manual. Well, actually it contains a lot more than that, and I'll show you guys that in a little bit. I like this part in the back, the only memory card you will ever need. What a big claim, Sega. But no, I can tell you from experience, this is certainly not the only memory card you ever need, because you need the awesome VMU as well. Now, the way that you open this box is interesting because the way that the flap on this box open is the opposite of the VMU packaging, which is not a big deal, but it's just something that I noticed when I was opening this thing. Anyway, so when you pull this package out, of course you're going to get the 4X memory card in a nice plastic caddy here, and then you get these 3 other stuff. And I'll gladly explain what they are, so let me just set them out in the order that I'm going to talk about them. So the first thing is basically, it's not other than a sticker, and what you're supposed to do with this thing is that you're supposed to peel like one of these things off and then attach it to that plastic indentation on the 4X memory card, basically like this. But I'm not going to do that because, you know, the original owner of this 4X memory card didn't do that, so I'm going to do the same thing. So now we get that sticker out of the way. The next thing I'm going to move on is to this thing, a Play to Win brochure for Sega Dreamcast. Now I'm going to show off this thing because, like, when am I ever going to talk about this? And I think it's very interesting to talk about because if you sign this product, you could win an emergency call ambulance arcade machine. Frick yes, I wish I had a time machine to go back in time in order to submit this thing, because I would love to have that. Oh, and get this, you know that this thing is old when it refers to the Nintendo GameCube as the Nintendo Dolphin. Anyway, so if you flip this thing on the back, you can see the PO box you're supposed to send to Sega, which was in Colorado. Then you got all the rules and all this kind of stuff, and yeah, but man, it would be so awesome to win that arcade machine, which is actually very interesting, that particular game, because I believe Emergency Call Ambulance was supposed to become a Dreamcast game, but I think it got cancelled because the Dreamcast, well, it discontinued too soon. So the last thing I want to talk about out of these 3 things is the instruction manual for the 4X memory card. So I've unfolded this thing ahead of time, and I'm going to give you guys a quick pan and scan of the entire manual right here. And one thing that really fascinates me is that, you know, for a device that is actually really simple to use, the manual is quite freaking big. But then again, the one for the VMU was pretty big too. So I'm going to continue letting you guys see the rest of this manual. I'm trying not to say too much about what is on this manual because, you know, I'm basically going to elaborate what's on this thing like in much more detail later on in this video. So yeah, that's basically all this manual has to offer, and holy freaking cow, I still can't believe that I actually managed to fold up that manual that fast, especially with one hand. But anyways, that's basically all the extra stuff in the packaging, and now I think it's time that we move on to the 4X memory card. So I'm going to take it out of this plastic caddy right here, and I think now is basically the time where I should discuss about how to use this 4X memory card on your Sega Dreamcast. So, if you have a Sega Dreamcast peripheral, and it has anything that even resembles a memory card port, for example like this Madcast Dream Blaster right here, yes, the 4X memory card will fit in there and it will work on every single device like that. So exceptions would be like the keyboard, the fishing rod, the mouse, mainly because they do not have a memory card slot, which sucks, but that's the way Sega designed these things. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be using the 4X memory card on a regular Sega Dreamcast controller. And yeah, so I usually put the 4X memory card into the second slot of the Dreamcast controller, because of course you want the VMU in the first slot so that you have dual screen functionality. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be putting the 4X memory card into slot 1, and I'll show you guys why in a little bit. So let's fire up the Dreamcast, and I'll gladly show you guys the wonders of the 4X memory card. So here we are on the Files section of the Dreamcast main menu, and the way that the Dreamcast registers memory is that it can only read 200 blocks at a time from a memory card slot. So you guys are now probably asking, then how can the 4X memory card contain 800 blocks? Well, Sega actually came up with a very interesting way to bypass this issue. For you see, the 4X memory card contains 4 banks of memory. Each has 200 blocks of memory. 200 times 4 equals 800. And the way that you can tell which bank is which is when you have your 4X memory card plugged into the Dreamcast controller. When the Dreamcast is on, one of the LED lights will be on. And if the light's on the most left LED, that's the first bank. If it's on the most right, it is the fourth one. Now, do you guys remember how I mentioned about a button that you can press on the 4X memory card earlier in this video? Well, that's actually what you use in order to switch between the banks of the 4X memory card, which is a really cool and simple way of getting 800 blocks on your Sega Dreamcast memory card. Now, yeah, as you can see here, I'm demonstrating me just clicking all the way through this thing. And if you press this button fast enough, you can make like a cool light show. Now, obviously, you shouldn't really do this. I was just messing around this video because you could potentially break the button. It's obvious. But one thing I want to point out about this card that can be a little bit problematic is that you saw before I pulled out the card, it was on the 4th memory bank. When you put it back in, it goes back to 1. Yeah, that's a little bit of a problem. Now I'm going to switch to 3 just to show you guys again, and then when I plug it back into controller, back to port 1. I assume that basically it's due to how simple that this device really is, that it really can't remember what memory bank you were on the last time that you used it. And unfortunately, there is another problem with the 4X memory card, and that is it doesn't work with a couple of Dreamcast games. Now the list is quite small, but unfortunately I happen to have 2 of them that don't actually work with the memory card. The first one I got is Airforce Delta. I really don't care about this game, to be honest, because it's VJ incompatible. But the other game that really makes me sad that doesn't work with this memory card is Rayman 2. I was so disappointed about this, especially because, if you guys saw my Q&A and all that kind of stuff, you would know that this game is one of my favorite games of all time. It is such an awesome game. It's a great platformer for the Sega Dreamcast, a whole ton of fun, and I definitely plan to maybe talk about this game sometime in the future. But anyways, yes, this game does not work with the 4X memory card, and I'll basically show you guys why. So here we are on the main menu of Rayman 2, and as you can see, it doesn't even detect the 4X memory card at all, which is a bummer. But this is actually quite, not as severe as some of the other games have with the 4X memory card, because this is what I heard. I'm not sure if this is true, but I've heard some other games, if you try to play them with the 4X memory card in any one of the controller slots, the game will crash. Yeah, so good. It's a good thing in a way that Rayman 2 doesn't suffer that bad of a problem, but it still sucks you can't use the 4X memory card. But to be honest, I would much rather use the VMU, regular VMU on this game anyway, because then you get this really cool animation of Rayman running after a butterfly on the VMU screen. I know it's very trivial, but it is still very cool to watch it anyway. So yeah, it is a bummer that the 4X memory card does not work with some Dreamcast games, and also, it has that problem of always going to the first bank every time you turn on the console. But let me tell you guys, the benefits of this thing far outweighs the cons. This is an absolutely fantastic peripheral. It's helped me out many times. And also, the problems with this thing are really minor, to be honest. I mean, like, there's only a couple games that are incompatible with it. And plus, you can just always press the button on the 4X memory card to get whatever memory bank you want. So it's really not that big of a deal at the end of the day. And the bottom line is that the 4X memory card is a Dreamcast peripheral that I would absolutely recommend.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed my review of the Sega Dreamcast 4X memory card. If any of you guys are Dreamcast collectors out there and you're having issues with storing all your save files onto a VMU because your VMU does not have enough space, definitely get your hands on this thing, because it has 4 times the memory of a regular VMU, which is awesome, and it's definitely more than enough of a reason to get this thing. So yeah, that's basically all I have to say about the 4X memory card. This is the Sega Dreamcast. My name is Michael, and may the dream be with you.